If you really sit down and look at the mechanics of how modern dating apps and algorithms are designed, you quickly notice something.
Oh, yeah, the baked-in assumption.
Exactly.
Mm.
There's this fundamental assumption just hardwired right into the code that treats compatibility like it's like a straightforward math problem.
Right, you just plug in your data points.
Yeah, your preferred hobbies, your political leanings, maybe your 5-year career plan, or, your favorite obscure indie films.
And then the machine just filters out all the noise.
It spits out someone who is basically just a reflection of you. I mean, the entire system is engineered from the ground up to minimize friction.
It is a highly optimized sorting mechanism, for sure. And honestly, from a psychological standpoint, we totally understand why these platforms are built this way.
Because it's easy.
Yeah, exactly. The human brain naturally craves cognitive ease. I mean, we are drawn to the familiar because when we see our own beliefs and lifestyle choices reflected back at us,
It's validating.
it is intensely validating. It serves as this powerful validation of our worldview. It requires very little caloric energy, honestly, to interact with someone who already agrees with your baseline assumptions about how the universe operates.
Which makes perfect sense for user retention on an app, right?
Mhm.
But when you actually step out of that algorithm and into the unpredictable, messy reality of human connection,
The math equation completely falls apart.
it disintegrates. We see couples who match on every conceivable metric, same background, same goals, same sense of humor, and they just implode within months.
Constantly.
And conversely, we see people who make zero sense on paper forge these unbreakable bonds. And that paradox is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
It's such a fascinating topic.
We are focusing on one of Netflix's most refreshing modern romances today, which is Noah and Joanne from the series Nobody Wants This.
Right, and on the surface, it's totally branded as a classic opposites attract kind of narrative.
But peeling back the layers on the notes and articles we have here reveals a much more complex anatomy of a relationship, one that actively defies all that algorithmic logic we were just talking about. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, the core mission driving today's deep dive is really asking a tough question. Can love genuinely survive and even thrive when two people are operating from fundamentally different philosophical and cultural frameworks?
Right, because we aren't just looking at a TV show here.
No, we are looking at a dynamic that, according to modern predictive compatibility models, is just doomed to fail from day one.
Completely doomed.
So to understand why it doesn't fail, we really have to look past the surface level trope of, the rule follower and the rebel.
Well, before we can understand how they connect, I think we have to look at the vastly different worlds they come from. I want to start by dissecting those operating systems they're running on.
Yeah, the gap between them is massive.
It's huge. So let's look at Noah first. The sources really paint him as calm, compassionate, thoughtful.
Very kind and deeply patient.
But those are just his personality traits, right? The actual engine driving his life is his unwavering commitment to his faith, his family, and his broader community.
That's the key. He isn't just a passive participant in his culture. He is actively leading it. He is deeply embedded in this collectivist mindset.
Which means what, exactly, in terms of his daily life?
Well, that collectivist mindset is the crucial detail. For Noah, emotional maturity doesn't just mean regulating his own feelings. It means constantly running this mental calculus on how his individual actions will ripple out.
And affect everyone around him.
Exactly, his community. His identity is just inextricably linked to his lineage and his responsibilities. When he makes a choice, he isn't just asking, does this make me happy?
Right, he's asking, does this honor my people and my duties?
Precisely. It is a very heavy, very grounded way to move through the world.
Okay, now contrast that with Joanne, because she is basically the embodiment of modern hyper-individualism.
Oh, completely.
The notes describe her as funny, honest, fiercely independent. She is outspoken and fundamentally skeptical of the very traditions that form the bedrock of Noah's existence.
She does not defer to authority.
Not at all. She questions it loudly. She's emotionally open, but very cautious. It's really like mixing oil and water.
That is the perfect analogy.
But I'm trying to figure out where that comes from. How much of who we actually are is shaped by our beliefs and upbringing versus our innate personalities? And why is a character like Joanne, who actively challenges expectations, so relatable to modern audiences?
It's an intricate collision of both nature and environment, really. I mean, Joanne's innate curiosity might just be biological, right? But her modern secular upbringing provides the scaffolding for that curiosity to manifest as skepticism.
Right, she's been culturally conditioned to view tradition not as a safety net, which is how Noah sees it, but almost as a cage.
Exactly. And Noah is fundamentally torn between love and his responsibility, while Joanne represents this very cautious challenge to traditional expectations. That's why she resonates so deeply with contemporary audiences.
Because she represents that urge to just reject the script.
Right, this intense modern urge to reject pre-written scripts and author our own lives.
It's like they are built on completely different architectural foundations.
Mm.
I mean, Noah's foundation is poured, concrete, deep, historical, unmoving.
And Joanne's is modular.
Yeah, constantly being redesigned based on new information and personal preference. So bringing someone who constantly asks, why are we doing this, into an environment built entirely on this is how we always done it, that is inherently destabilizing.
Oh, highly disruptive. When Joanne questions a tradition, she isn't just asking a logistical question. She is unintentionally threatening the load-bearing pillars of Noah's worldview.
So if her mere presence is a threat to his structure, why did audiences fall in love with him almost immediately? Like, why does the dynamic actually work?
Well, the answer lies in how those contrasting traits interact to create undeniable chemistry.
Yeah, the immediate consensus from the sources is the chemistry. It's the snappy, realistic dialogue, the shared humor, the authentic performances, the way they just spark off each other.
What's fascinating here is that their connection goes far beyond surface-level banter, though.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. We see a lot of couples with a natural connection and great humor just burn out quickly. The spark catches fire, burns bright, and then turns to ash the second a real crisis hits.
That happens all the time, yeah.
So is it the shared vulnerability rather than the humor that acts as the real glue here? What is the actual mechanism keeping them tethered when the jokes stop working?
You are hitting on a critical distinction. Humor is highly effective for initial attraction, sure. It serves as a social lubricant. It disarms the initial awkwardness.
Right, it breaks the ice.
But psychologically speaking, humor is frequently used as a defense mechanism.
Oh, totally. Deflect with a joke.
Exactly. It's a brilliant way to deflect intimacy. You crack a joke to avoid answering the uncomfortable question. The actual glue holding the specific dynamic together isn't the banter. It is mutual vulnerability. And most importantly, a profound respect for one another, despite their disagreements.
Explain how that vulnerability operates in practice, though. Because vulnerability has become such a buzzword lately. What does it actually look like when they are staring across this massive philosophical gap?
True vulnerability is the intentional lowering of your psychological defenses. It's the act of saying, here is a raw, unpolished part of my identity, and I am handing you the power to judge it, trusting that you won't.
Wow. Yeah.
In the context of their differences, when Noah exposes the depth of his devotion to a tradition that Joanne finds archaic, he is making himself vulnerable to her intellectual mockery.
Right. She could just laugh at it.
And when Joanne exposes her fear of losing her independence, she is vulnerable to his judgment that she might just be selfish or non-committal.
But the bond is forged because neither of them takes the bait.
Exactly. They refuse to weaponize those exposed weaknesses.
They basically decouple the belief from the person's inherent worth. Joanne might look at a specific religious rule and think it's totally irrational, but she never treats Noah as irrational for following it.
She respects his intellect enough to assume he has a valid reason.
Yes, and Noah doesn't look at her fierce independence and dismiss her as a commitment phobe. He deeply respects her need for autonomy.
Which touches on a fascinating psychological concept regarding how we process disagreement.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, normally, when someone attacks our core beliefs, our amygdala, the threat detection center of the brain, lights up exactly as if we were being chased by a predator. We go into fight or flight.
So it's over a disagreement.
Just over a disagreement. But when disagreement is paired with deep, demonstrated respect and vulnerability, it sends a countersignal that we are actually safe. The threat response is neutralized.
Ah, so that's why they can have these fundamental clashes without just destroying the relationship.
Easy.
But, chemistry and vulnerability are great in a vacuum. That feeling of safety is localized entirely between the two of them. It's like they've built this secure little bubble.
And bubbles usually pop.
Right, because a relationship has to survive in the real world. This leads us to the external pressures that threaten to pull them apart. Let's look at the collision of their two worlds.
This is where the narrative really transitions into a profound commentary on the sociological weight of modern romance. The friction points here are not
We're
trivial.
not talking about differing tastes in music.
No, not at
Right.
all. The sources highlight the heavy burdens placed on the couple, family pressure, religious expectations, and broader cultural norms. Noah is carrying the expectations of an entire community that requires its leaders to model a very specific type of family unit.
His relationship with an outsider isn't just a personal quirk to them.
To his community, it represents a breach of duty. Their differences in faith and personal identity create immense strain.
And you really see this intense internal tug-of-war tearing him apart. He possesses a genuine, earnest desire to serve his community and uphold that legacy. It's not a burden he resents, he loves it.
It does.
But simultaneously, he has found this undeniable, expansive personal happiness with Joanne. He is essentially being forced to choose between the collective and the individual.
Which is arguably the most significant tension in human sociological history.
Really?
Think about it. If we look back just a few centuries, marriage was almost entirely a tool for the collective.
Right, forging alliances, keeping land in the family.
Exactly. Consolidating resources, ensuring the survival of the community. Personal romantic fulfillment was an afterthought. It was a happy accident if it happened, but it was never the actual goal.
But today, we've swung completely to the opposite end of the spectrum. We operate under this hyper-romanticized ideal that personal happiness is the only valid metric for a successful life.
And anyone who tells you otherwise is labeled as toxic.
Right. But looking at Noah's dilemma, it begs the question, how much should other people's expectations, whether from family or society, be allowed to influence our own relationships? At what point does personal happiness outweigh deeply ingrained cultural expectations?
That is the ultimate stress test for any modern relationship, balancing who you are as an individual with who you are expected to be by your community. And that tension is exactly why their dynamic is so compelling. The narrative refuses to offer a clean, easy answer.
It doesn't villainize the community for wanting continuity.
No, and it doesn't villainize Joanne for wanting individual freedom either. It forces the characters, and you as the audience, to just sit in the extreme discomfort of competing valid desires.
It's a terrifying tightrope walk. One misstep, and you either lose your identity or you lose your partner.
So to survive that intense collision of love and external expectations, they rely on one specific tool.
Right. Our sources identify this as the healthiest part of their relationship, the secret weapon, the mechanics of their communication.
But we need to define what that actually means, because good communication is often misunderstood as simply talking a lot.
Oh, I see it all the time. People think they are communicating just because they are vocalizing their feelings. They navigate their differences through active listening, mutual respect, and honest conversations.
But why does it work?
Because usually, especially in high-stakes arguments about core beliefs, it devolves into a game of rhetorical ping-pong. You aren't actually listening to understand the other person's internal landscape.
No, you're listening to find the flaw in their logic.
Exactly. You are just waiting for them to take a breath so you can reload and fire off your counter-argument.
The reload argument, that is driven by a desire to win, to conquer the differing viewpoint. Noah and Joanne bypass this destructive loop by employing a very specific cognitive tool, curiosity.
Curiosity builds connection.
Yes, curiosity is the antidote to judgment. It is neurologically impossible to be genuinely curious and fiercely defensive at the exact same time.
Oh, wow, that makes so much sense.
So when they hit a wall of misunderstanding, instead of trying to instantly convert the other person to their way of thinking, they use communication to find compromises. They lean into the discomfort and ask, "Help me understand why you see it this way."
Let's put a hypothetical frame around this to see how it works mechanically for you listening. Say they are arguing about a major life decision where tradition demands one path and modern independence demands another.
Okay.
The standard reload argument looks like this. Noah says, "We have to do it this way because of my community." And Joanne immediately counters with, "Your community is controlling you. We need to do what's best for us."
Defenses go up, resentment builds, someone is sleeping on the couch.
Right.
Precisely. In that scenario, they are arguing about the proposed solution, not the underlying fear. But if we apply the tool of curiosity, the dynamic shifts entirely.
How so?
Well, Noah might say, "I'm feeling immense pressure from my family about this." Instead of attacking the family, a curious response from Joanne would be, "What is the consequence you are most afraid of if we don't follow their expectation?"
She is mapping the territory of his mind, not attacking the borders.
Exactly.
And by asking that, she invites him to look at his own fear objectively. He might realize his fear of disappointing his parents is what's driving his stubbornness, rather than the actual merit of the tradition.
Which opens the door for a compromise, one that honors his relationship with his family without sacrificing her autonomy.
They use communication not as a weapon to achieve victory, but as an exploratory tool to find a patch of shared ground.
But I will say, this requires a massive amount of emotional stamina.
I bet.
It is exhausting to constantly suspend your own ego to understand a perspective that directly challenges your own. But this is the work of love. We often operate under the myth that love should be effortless, that if it is meant to be, it will just be frictionless.
So what does this all mean for the rest of us? Is masterful communication actually more important than having everything in common?
The analysis of this dynamic suggests exactly that. Love doesn't magically erase differences. But sometimes the hardest, most uncomfortable conversations are exactly what strengthen a relationship.
It suggests we should perhaps stop optimizing for zero friction. I mean, if we zoom out and think about what this means for anyone navigating a relationship today, it turns that dating app algorithm model completely on its head.
It really does.
If you only ever date people who share your exact worldview and your exact background, your communication muscles atrophy. You never have to do the heavy lifting of understanding an alien perspective.
You remain comfortable, sure, but you risk remaining completely stagnant. When you introduce friction, when you date someone who challenges your assumptions about how the world works, you are forced into a crucible.
And if you navigate that crucible with the tools we've discussed, the vulnerability, the deep respect, the curiosity, you don't just survive the argument.
You forge a bond that is significantly more resilient than a bond built solely on mutual convenience.
Because you actually had to dig deep into the bedrock to pour a new foundation together. It wasn't just handed to you by a sorting algorithm. You built it.
The friction itself becomes the bonding agent, provided the communication is healthy, of course.
Right. So as we synthesize all these insights and wrap up this deep dive into the messy, complicated, beautifully chaotic dynamic between Noah and Joanne, what is the final verdict here? Can a relationship that looks like a disaster on paper actually function as a model for modern romance?
The overarching takeaway from the sources is that Noah and Joanne stand out as one of Netflix's best modern couples precisely because they offer a message of hope. But it's a hope grounded in emotional maturity. Meaning healthy relationships require immense compromise. It demands that both individuals possess the emotional maturity to tolerate discomfort.
They show us that fundamental differences do not automatically have to be deal breakers.
Not at all. In fact, if handled with curiosity and respect, those differences can serve as a profound source of strength.
They force you to clarify your own values, expand your empathy, and actively choose your partner every single day, rather than just coasting on similarity.
It's basically a masterclass in staying in the room when the conversation gets incredibly difficult, choosing connection over the comfort of being right.
To everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us as we unpack the anatomy of this unlikely connection. Exploring the friction, the psychological mechanisms, and the chemistry of difference gives us all a lot to reflect on regarding how we structure our own connections.
And before you go, think about your own life and deal breakers for a second. We want to leave you with a final, lingering question to ponder. Could you truly date someone whose beliefs, faith, or lifestyle were fundamentally different from your own? Why or why not?
Because at the end of the day, you simply cannot algorithm your way into a soulmate. Sometimes the person who completely disrupts your worldview is exactly the person you need to help you see it clearly. Keep diving deep, and we'll catch you next time.